think would be the most healing thing and valuable thing for people to hear right now so that we're just feeling more a sense of inner peace and a sense of less of like there's enemies out there and who I could be seeing enemies every time I'm walking on the street, and this divisiveness that is really caused by fear and keeps us from really that deeper knowing and that intuition inside ourselves.
Well, so I wrote the Neurotics Guide. That's not even in press anymore, although it was really my stream of consciousness. So some people actually like it because it got really weird. I mean, so it's a lot of weirdness. And I always tell people if you're really interested, I've got a few copies. I can send you a PDF of one of the old unedited ones, and then of course the No Self, No Problem focuses on the whole illusion of self. But I also came up with a workbook, which is actually like it sounds. It's work. And so, and so it's, this idea again that we've got a switch and we just flick it and suddenly you're absolutely at peace. That's more along the lines of myth. I think in the real world, a lot of us work, whether it's meditation, practicing, focusing of attention, uh, keeping a accurate record of the flaws of the mind, all of that. And so it's I don't know, 50 or so exercises that just kind of a buffet style, like pick which ones work. Because as with students, I found that different exercises work for different people. And so I like to throw a lot of stuff. And even the review said, like, wow, he throws so much at us. And the reason is because I'm talking to a large audience, so I want to see what works for you. Maybe you only get 3 exercises, and that does it for you. But as far as what do the practical advice, and you probably heard it. Your listeners have heard, like, you already are a Buddha, you just don't know it.
Mm.
And a lot of people, well, what does that mean? What do you mean I've already got peace inside? And I think that speaks to the relationship between consciousness and this fictitious mind that's creating up all these stories that we believe in. And when you ask and you say, well, let's go back, kind of like the reality question. Because if I'm peaceful consciousness, why am I caught up in drama? Is that because consciousness is weak? Or is there something else happening? And there is a very interesting, again, stories that come out of ancient India. And, what would consciousness do if it was perfect? Well, it might actually want to get lost. It may actually forget who it is.
Mhm.
And maybe it became separate people like all of us, 8 billion, or who knows, with all the species. And each with a different perspective, getting into adventures and finding drama. And that could be you right now. Your eternal consciousness who is pretending to be a human, who is pretending to have experiences of drama. And if you can just picture that and even get a tiny little bit of emotional sense that maybe there's some possibility that that's even on track. You don't have to
Mm.
believe it. Just have a feeling. Could that be the case? And
And I wonder, sorry to cut you
oh,
off. I wonder, as you're talking, I'm thinking about families that are divided. I'm thinking about couples that are divided. And I mean, I happen to have some friends that, feel very, very strongly in two different directions. And I think, throughout the last several years, between COVID and elections and all of these kinds of things, it's literally broken friendships up. I know it's broken some of mine up, friendships, marriages, family relationships. And I wonder what we can offer people who are in the middle of that right now, where they're really like maybe married to a person who their mind is telling them all kinds of stories about. Um, and how to I mean, to me, it really comes down to like pairing off all of the ego and all of the defense and all of the mind and getting back to this sense of like your heart, like that connection in your heart that has nothing to do with any of these things. And sometimes in some moments, like that's really hard to find.
but that's absolutely, I love the way you put that because I was driving my son home from soccer And I started wondering, like, here's this being. I have absolute love and unconditional love, but what is it? Like, is my left brain story love his left brain story, and his left brain story love, or does it go deeper?
Yeah, probably not, right? Like I know my left brain story does not always match up with my husband's left brain story.
No, and that's and so when we talk about the no self philosophy, it's a wonderful thing to experience, and it happens where people have the experience. They're like, oh yeah, this thing I think of as a self, it's just a collection of memories and storytelling fantasies, and it's not really who I am.
Yeah.
I'm beyond that. I'm this consciousness that is observing the entire show, and so, but that doesn't just hold for you. If the no self philosophy is at all on track, it's for all of us. So the person that you're arguing with, the person that seems so divisive, and there's this wall between you, or there's this, this, you can't get over this one issue. The no self isn't just from your perspective. It's also in their skull. They may be fooled into believing that they are this ego. And so, what is it that's holding us together? And there's two ways relationships can work. They can be ego advantages. And so my ego is getting something from, you're almost in like Machiavellian sense that, like, what use are you to my ego? And that's one way relationships work. But I think a
Mhm.
lot of the relationships that you're talking about go beyond that. And so we tear away the illusions, and what do we find? We find consciousness, which is most closely described by the word love. And so when you have these experiences of consciousness without ego, you just become absolutely filled with joy and what people for thousands of years have described as love. And then this person isn't the other. There is, spiritual teachers have told us for a long time there are no others.
Yeah.
And so there are just egos pretending to be separate. And so when consciousness recognizes that there is love, it's really recognizing itself in the other person. Well, we are of the same vibe. We are of the same connection of consciousness. And it's just this little story being told by the left brain that makes us think we're different. And just a moment of that connection, it unplugs the energy of the left brain ego and its
Yeah.
insistence on these stories being right.
And it cultivates such a different action in that moment. And I mean, I'm thinking about this as we're talking because and I know this seems like a crazy example, but I like to give examples that are like really grounded in like our day to day because that's what we can relate to, you know what I mean? But this morning, for example, we have this very elderly dog and she barks. I mean, she's just totally senile. She stands in the, I can't believe she doesn't bark right now. I got this new mic, it picks up everything. I was interviewing someone the other day, they're like, yep, I heard every bark. Like it's literally like every 15 seconds in the middle of it. And she's constantly looking for food. There's nothing that calms her down. She's making us all crazy. And and she's way too old. She should not be alive. And I had this moment this morning and I said to my husband, I said, you know what? Do you realize what she's been with us through? Like 2 illnesses with different children, like she was there when I was waking up all night long, every night, just checking to see that you were breathing, like in total fear and terror, like all like, going back for custody, like all of these things. And it was that moment just that you're talking about where I just like connected instead of what the ego is like, this is getting in my way. I can't work because I can't think and da, 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 and all of the things that fear and get in the way. It's like I just connected with my heart, right? Which of course caused me to just go pick her up and just sit with her for like 10 minutes. And that happens all the time. I have to remind myself to do it. But as soon as I pick her up and just sit with her, she just like melts in my lap. And it's just this consciousness connection, just this connection of love.
Yep,
I don't know why I
absolutely.
felt compelled to say that, but
No, it's a beautiful story because that's why some people have given up on humans because it's so hard to get past the ego. And that's the wonderful thing about dogs, cats, people, they may not articulate it this way, but their relationship is almost entirely based on conscious connection and feel and touch. and direct experiences with almost no drama of the ego. And I think it was Eckert maybe who pointed that out of one of the people who lived next to him where their cat left, and the owner was saying, "Oh, well, if you're going to have that attitude, I'm just going to close the window." And thinking that there's all this ego in the cat. No, the cat's not doing this. The cat's just kind of in reality doing their thing, and so I think most of us we're even kind of more drawn to species that have not been totally seduced into the mind because there's that peace, like you said, that peaceful, conscious connection, and with no drama. And it's easier with pets because with them, we only have to calm our own ego. And there's that when two egos go head to head, there's that equal and opposite reaction where, you know, um, you know, uh, each ego tries to dig in deeper to its position, and that's one of the things that escalates an argument. But you don't get that with animals that are not ego dominated
Right, right. I love it. Yeah.
or infants.
Or infants. Yeah. We try and project onto them, you
Yeah.
know, oh, he's being a jerk, this dog, and blah, 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 whatever, but yeah, that is not there. Thank you so much for this conversation. I appreciate it. I felt, really grateful that we had made the connection before and that I could email you after this and just say, hey, can we review like what is going on out there? And I'm really thrilled that you were willing to do this and have it so that other people could be part of that conversation too. So, yeah, I appreciate you so much. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks. It's so much fun. I just like you. I hope something that we offered can, be that door. Next time the drama feels like it's escalating over your head, just there's always a door. There's always, and you're always choosing this. And we don't want to hear that a lot, particularly
Yeah.
when we're suffering. We don't want to hear that like, well, we're choosing suffering, but suffering can be, we're so familiar with it. And sometimes it's better to feel familiar even if you're suffering than to experience something new. And I think that's one of the things I struggled when I was getting over my neurosis, all these new feelings, like sometimes I wanted to go back because it just felt so comfortable to suffer.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's a great question to leave on. Like, what are you choosing?
Hmm.
Because it's your inner world that is suffering more than anything in this moment right now. In fact, maybe the only thing.
Yep. It's the only choice.